Hey everyone, Tom Black here with the True Life with Tom show. I am joined once again by one of my favorite people on the planet Earth, Doug Bench, the brain training guy, medical cannabis advocate, and one of my favorite people. So, Doug,
Yes, sir.
so glad to have you on here. Tell me about, we were talking a little bit before we started recording. What is going on with your book? What are your plans with the brain, and how are you going to make people function maybe a little higher with what you've got in the cooker right now?
Well, it's pretty exciting everything we have going on. You know, brains are an awesome thing. Don't we wish everybody had one? Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
uh, what happened to me was just I had no plans to study the brain. I was a lawyer for years and years and years. Retired from that, was a judge for 6 years, uh, and was teaching contractor continuing education. And then my mother who she raised me and my brother and sister. My father was killed in a car accident when I was just 13. He was an amazing man. But my mom was an RN and she had an IQ that made her eligible for Mensa Society, which is for the highly IQ'd, not me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Apparently, it skips a generation.
Right.
Uh, but then, Tom, about 21 years ago, she contracted Alzheimer's. And it scared the crap out of me because my response to that was, oh my gosh, if it could take my genius mother, what chance do I have? So I was frightened. So I went looking to study the brain. And the first book I found was called The Owner's Manual for the Brain, a book by Dr. Pierce Howard. And frankly, I bought it because it was the thickest one I could find. I figured it's going to give me the most information about how I could take care of my brain better because I never even thought about taking care of my brain at all. And I started reading that book, and some things happened. Number one, many, many times in that book, he kept saying, just wait 6 or 7 years because there's going to be some new brain imaging equipment coming online that they're going to be able to find phenomenal things about a living, breathing, thinking brain. Well, I'm kind of stupid. It took me about halfway through the book before I realized, wait a minute, when was this book published? So I go to the front of the book. It was published 6 years before I was reading it. So when he kept saying, wait 6 or 7 years, I'm going, holy cow, that's now. So
Right.
that led me to just everything with the word brain in it. I started looking at it. And I found out about an institute out in La Jolla, California called the Jonas Salk, named after the gentleman who created polio vaccine, Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk Institute of Biological Studies. And there's like 22 of the world's leading neuroscientists doing research out there. You had to be, every January, they had a symposium where these guys would present their papers from all their research. Well, you had to be a doctor to get into the symposium. Don't tell anybody, Tom. I am a doctor. I've got a doctor of law degree. So a Juris Doctor. So I was eligible to go to that. I was probably the only one who wasn't a real MD, but I
Hmm.
would sit in the back and record all the stuff I was hearing from their research studies. And then I'd bring it home, I'd transcribe it, and then I'd go looking for other things that led me to. And it my oldest grandson, who's 29 now, so he was about 6 or 7 at the time, he was learning math. So I would call him on a weekly basis and say, okay, Drew, I read this many pages this week. Add that to our total. And then he'd have to add that to the total. Well, it got over 100,000 pages that I was reading in brain research. And you know what started happening? My freaking brain started working better. it started coming up with money making ideas. It started coming up with ideas to be in better health. And I started sharing these ideas with some of the contractors in my classes. They took some of the information that I had, turned it into money making ideas for either their construction business or a tool idea or something they were designing or popped into their head. And I said, I'm going to get me a guru. I love speaking. I'm going to go around the country and talk about this. So I got this guru on speaking. I showed him my about 800 pages of notes from everything I read. He said, Holy crap, you've got to write a book. I said, I can't write a book. He said, Yes, you can. It took me a while, but I've now written two books on the brain. The first one is called Revolutionize Your Brain, Kiss Your Old Brain Goodbye. Then the second one, which was a bestseller, was called Do It Yourself Brain Surgery, Non Invasive. Uh,
Mm,
and what I put in there was I took the 16 greatest brain research discoveries of the last 20 years. And when this new equipment, it's called a SPECT imaging scanner, SPECT, single photon computer enhanced tomography. I have no idea what that means, but I can tell you what it can do. It can see a living, breathing, thinking slice of a human brain about 1/100,000th the thickness of a sheet of paper. And it's while they were thinking, they would give them stimulus, they would give them math problems to solve, and they would see what was going on in the brain. In the old days, and much of the research I saw, old research, they'd take a slice of a deceased person's brain, put it on a slide under a microscope or an electron microscope, but that's not doing much thinking on that
mm,
microscope. So there's just been an explosion of information about how the brain works. And I got in reading. I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was probably about 8 years ago. I bought this book called The New Brain by neuroscientist by the name of Richard Restak, Restak. And I started reading that book, and sometimes I'd read all night. And my wife and I have a leather chair in the bedroom, and I was sitting in that leather chair, and it was about 3 in the morning, and I was reading this book, and I read something in that book that I'm going to say to you here in a minute, and I just jumped out of the chair, ran over the bed, shook my wife, scared her half to death, and said, "You got to hear this. You have got to hear what he's saying." And what it said in that book, he called it the new brain because his point was what we knew about the brains before is nothing compared to what we know about the brain now based on the new brain imaging equipment and all the things they're finding out with this new equipment. And what he said in there is every one of us, Tom, no matter what our age, if you learn about the new brain research and you learn and apply techniques based on that research, you can expect a lifetime of greater achievements. That just blew me away. Not possibly. You can expect if you learn about the brain research. And I was right in the middle of learning about the brain research. So that rekindled my interest in that. And uh, just about a year ago now, I sent out a survey to 900 of the contractors that I teach continuing education to, asking them what they were concerned about, expecting them to say OSHA, workplace safety, uh, scaling up my business, etc., interest rates. No, their top two topics, Tom, were I'm worried about my memory. I'm worried about losing my independence because of dementia. And when that hit me like a rock, I've got to update my books. I've got to update my brain training programs to include the newest research clear up to today because I've never stopped studying the research. I just didn't put it into my program.
Mm.
We're doing that now, and it's 16 of the greatest discoveries, and then 16 techniques based on those discoveries, techniques and strategies that can do amazing things for all of our brains. We can expect a lifetime of greater achievements. It's astounding. And I can give you just a couple examples. Uh,
Please.
the greatest discovery of all is called neurogenesis, sometimes called neuroplasticity, sometimes called brain plasticity. Phenomenal discovery. Uh, Here's what it says, and then I'll break it down. If you stimulate your brain, no matter what your age, my favorite part, Tom, I'm the big 8-0. If you stimulate your brain, no matter what your age, your brain will form new DSP connections, increasing the total number of connections in your brain and increasing your brain's capacity for achievement. Wow. Let's start over. If you stimulate your brain, what do we got to do to stimulate your brain? Do we cut the top of your head off, put two electrodes in, throw a switch, and yell clear? No. It is so simple, it's crazy. To stimulate your brain, all you got to do is learn something new. Do something different than what you've done before. Read about Greek mythology because you've never, ever read about Greek mythology before. If you drive to work day after day after day, drive a different way to work, a different way home from work. Brush your teeth with the wrong hand. That's all it takes to stimulate your brain. No matter what your age, doesn't matter, 6, 16, 66, 106, it doesn't matter. You can create new DSP connections. Now, what's that? That dendrite spine protuberances. We've got about 85 billion neurons in the brain. And each neuron has a branch, a nucleus, and then what are called dendrite branches. And if you stimulate your brain, I've seen it on the videos now with the new SPECT imaging scanners. When people are learning something new, these protuberances grow off of the dendrite spines, reach out and connect with other neurons, creating new connections in the brain. Are you kidding me? Which increases the total number of connections and increases your brain's capacity for achievement. When this study came out with this discovery, two Swedish scientists spent about a year trying to estimate how many new connections each of us can create in our brain over a lifetime. That number, Tom, is the number one, followed by zeros in 12-point font, which is the standard font in a textbook. It's a one followed by zeros that would fill a 500-page book with the zeros and then go off of page 500 for an additional distance of 6.2 million miles of zeros. Holy cow.
Wow.
There's a huge problem with this. So the huge problem is all excuses, they're gone. Oh, I can't learn that. I'm too old. Wrong. 6, 16, 66, 106 doesn't matter. They've proven it. Well, I can't help it. That's just the way I am. I can't learn a new language now. Yes, you can. So we're in a process of putting that all together. And I need, I'm teaching the contractors because I love sharing and helping them protect their license and not get sued and stuff. And I'll ask them in the class, how many of you are lousy with names? How many of you are forgetful? Every hand goes up. Well, I say, stop worrying about that. That's normal. Let me tell you what's going on in your brain that makes that happen. And it's the fact that your brain can't store energy. When you meet somebody new, neurons are firing, a neurode pattern it's called, firing in your hippocampus in each side of your brain. That's where short-term memory is stored. There's an organ in your brain called the amygdala, sits on the end of each hippocampus. Amygdala is Greek for almond shape because it's shaped like an almond, but it controls all the automated functions in your brain. Now, it was pre-programmed, in my opinion, by the creator to understand that your brain cannot store energy. So it must conserve energy because your amygdala is in control of the reptilian part of your brain. That controls your breathing, minor things like your breathing, your heartbeat, uh, your body temperature, all these things that are automatically controlled requires energy. So your amygdala knows if you're wasting energy, it's going to shut it off. So you meet somebody new and their name goes into your hippocampus, and it's somebody important to you, might get you a big contract or get you a new job or something. And you're talking to them for a minute and they tell you their name's John, but you're listening to them now and you're in your brain, you're going, oh, darn it, I can't remember his name. That's because your amygdala said, hey, he hasn't sent that to long term memory. Must not be important. I'm going to shut it off. And it does. That's a very scientific term. It's called
And
forgetting.
and and how many seconds? You've told me this before. How many
Yeah.
seconds does it take to forget a name?
It's anywhere from 6 seconds to 12 minutes, depending on a lot more than we have time to go into. But on
Sure.
average, 43 seconds.
Okay. So we can now let everyone know comfortably that everyone forgets names
Yep.
if they don't transfer it to long term. Is that
Yeah.
right?
And what I make them write down is memory is an active process, not passive. Things don't go well. There are a few things that go to long term memory automatically. That's the creator's job. I'll explain that in a minute. But for you and I, we got to take action. It doesn't come out of the hippocampus and go automatically to long term memory. We have to send it there either by repetition or by association or tactily by writing it down.
Hmm.
Uh, the more emotional an event is, I like to say it this way: the creator has programmed us so that if something is extremely important, the creator is going to make sure we don't forget that.
Hmm.
That's going to go to long-term memory. Like you're not old enough, but I'm old enough to remember exactly where I was on November 22nd, 1963, when
Understood.
JFK was killed. Uh, I don't have to send that by repetition or writing it
Right.
down.
Right.
It's
It
there.
was important.
Walking my daughter down the aisle. Oh yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a second thing that we share with everybody, that we try to help improve the performance of their brain. And then there's so many. There's 14 other steps. Uh, it just amazed me. The reticular activating system,
That's
RAS.
that's one of my favorites. Go ahead.
It's unbelievable. It's not an organ like the hippocampus or the corpus callosum, which connects the two sides of the brain. It's a group of neurons that work together, mostly in the back of the brain where they're located, but they work together in performing two major functions. One is picture a toll booth. You got a toll booth in your brain. Every impulse that comes into your brain has to go through the toll booth, whether it's sight, sound, smell, touch, a thought, whatever it is, it's got to go through that toll booth. Well, different types of impulses are interpreted in different parts of your brain. For example, what we see, we don't really see, but we interpret those impulses as sight in the occipital lobe. So picture Mario sitting in that toll booth in your brain. And he's looking out there at every impulse that comes by. And he does this instantaneously. Here comes one. Oh, yep, that's sight. All right, you go straight back there to the occipital lobe. That's where you're interpreting. Oh, here comes sound. Okay, you go over here and turn left to the temporal lobe. That's where you're interpreting. And it does that instantaneously. And it does it perfectly. It never messes that up unless you get Mario drunk with drugs or something. Then he might send a sound impulse to the wrong place. He might send it to the occipital lobe. What do we do then? We hallucinate psychedelic pictures
Hmm.
because they're from sound, not sight. So you don't want to mess with that. But its second function is where I tell people in my program, do you procrastinate? We all do. I'll tell you a way you can overcome procrastination and never procrastinate again. Would you like to learn that? Would that help you? Well, it's Mario in that toll booth. It's a second function of your RAS. Not only does he send it to the right part of your brain for interpretation, but he checks it to see if it's on your important list. He's got a list hanging inside the toll booth there of everything that's important to you, Tom. Now, what's on that list? Everything you've been thinking about last 21 to 60 days, over and over. That gets put on that list. Me too. I turned 80 last March. The last time I bought a new car was 1965. I bought a Volkswagen Beetle. It cost me $1,275, brand new. I don't
Nice.
even remember what the payments were. Maybe $30 a month. I don't know. Ever since then, I've always bought used cars. I'm kind of a penny pincher. But something happened when I turned 80. I told my wife, you know what, honey? I'm going to go buy a brand new car. I haven't bought one since 1965. It's probably going to be the last car I ever buy. I'm going to buy a new one. She said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. So there's a road pretty near us, a couple miles away, that where all the car dealers are. It's called the Automall Circle. I started at one end. First car dealer, Subaru. I like Subarus. My wife had an Outback. Let me keep looking. Go to the second one. It's a Nissan dealer. Didn't see anything I liked there. Third one, oh, that's the Volkswagen dealer. I pulled in there. Now I'm a crazy Ohio State fan, and their colors are scarlet and gray. And I pulled into that lot, Tom, and from around the corner comes a 2026 Atlas Cross Sport turbocharged, beautiful chrome wheel SUV. Guess what color it was? Scarlet. I said to myself, if the interior of that car is gray, I'm owning that car. I don't care what it costs. I don't care. I'm 80 years old. I'm going to buy it. The interior was gray. It's sitting right out here now.
Right.
To this day, I still don't know what it costs. But you know what? I'm so proud of that thing. I got a new car. I got the only one in the world like it. It's in Buckeye colors. It's scarlet and gray. It's turbocharged. It's got chrome wheels. And you know what happened? I started seeing them darn cars everywhere, just like mine. I wasn't looking for them. I could be driving up to North Carolina, a long 8 hour drive, talking to my wife, eating grapes or bananas or something. All of a sudden, my head would automatically turn and an Atlas would be going by. That's the RAS. VW Atlases are on my important list, and you cannot ignore it. Your brain automatically sends that to your prefrontal cortex because it's on your list of what's important to you. So I can show people how to put their goals on their important list, and then they cannot possibly ignore any stimulus related to their goal. They must respond to it and act upon it. It happens automatically. That's just the power of what they're learning about how the human brain works. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Oh, no question. And one of the things that's why, you talk about the board, people talk about vision boards because what
Yes,
we don't understand is what you're talking about. Not only RAS, but when we look at the board, our subconscious mind it just starts working toward the board, not knowing it, just
that's right.
starts working on it. So that's really exciting. One other thing, I can't wait until you get your program up because I have a lot of I graduated high school in 1984, so I have a lot of peers that are all turning 60 this year, right? We're
Yeah,
all starting to
yeah.
think about that. We're all grandparents, so we're starting to think about that next step, that next chapter, right? So let me ask you this. I don't want to get into what I think is reducing some people's cholesterol. I believe cholesterol is really good for your brain, right?
Yeah, that's
What
absolutely
are
true.
some
Yeah.
easy ways to help with brain health? Obviously, doing new habits, driving new,
Mhm.
you know, brushing with the opposite hand, whatever. Are there any other techniques that you've used over the years that had helped with those new neuro pathways?
Number one, you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional about it. Uh, One of the first things you and I talked about, memory is an active process, not passive. It's not going to happen unless you commit to having it happen. Also, with neurogenesis, for example, in addition to that, they learned that you can build up what's called a neural reserve. Literally, you can create a reserve group of neuron connections in your brain that can be called upon to replace connections that have either atrophied through age, that have been harmed via stroke or an accident or some kind of vascular damage. So there are many things you can do that goes right along with neurogenesis that creates this neural reserve. For example, we had a national cutting horse rodeo champion in our church. You may have met him years ago, Al. And he had a stroke which paralyzed the left side of his body
Hmm.
in the right side of his brain. Well, we showed him ways that he could build up a neural reserve. And it was just a matter of maybe 90 days. And he started using that left arm again because the reserve neurons were replacing those that were damaged in the stroke.
Wow.
So, uh, one, of course, is diet. Uh, what you put into your body is vitally important. Uh, you and I talked about it before we started this conversation on Zoom, was about statins and cholesterol. They have it totally wrong about cholesterol. The brain lives on cholesterol. So it's good cholesterol. So it's a very good thing for support, and you can build up a good Mediterranean diet, or what they call the mind diet, which is healthful foods. Get rid of the processed foods, and then just on a daily basis, 30 minutes of walking every day. You got to get the blood flow strong up to the brain. Uh, One other thing that people can do is hydration. Uh, there are about 85 billion neurons in the brain. Every one of them has up to 10,000 connections to other neurons, and they connect at an area called the synaptic gap. They don't really touch each other. There's a gap that the information or impulse has to cross over. Now, in the old days, they thought that was an electrical charge that went across that gap, almost like a strike of lightning. That's not true at all. With the new equipment, what happens is an electrical resistance flows down a neuron. When it gets to the synapse, it converts to chemical energy, which explodes neurotransmitters, little tiny, tiny, tiny chemical particles across that gap to the receiving neuron to continue that message either to the brain for interpretation or to the muscles to maintain balance,
Hmm.
whatever it is. And that gap is filled with a fluid, strangely enough, called the synaptic fluid, mostly water. But if you're dehydrated, just 10% dehydrated, that fluid becomes so thick that about 50% of those chemical particles can't successfully make the journey across that gap. So I tell these students that we have studying our program that if you're just 10% dehydrated, you're a half wit because you're operating on about half of the neurotransmitters that were carrying the message to and from your brain, to and from your body.
right.
So staying fully hydrated is extremely important too.
Well, let me ask you this. I've done some research recently where they said the recommendation is to add some Celtic salt or sea salt to the water so it permeates your cells more easily. Is that what you
Absolutely true.
okay?
Absolutely true.
Any other daily habits, like easy habits, for the hydration?
I took part in a study with a very large construction company up in Atlanta, Georgia, and they're self-insured. If they have an employee that gets injured on the job, they have to pay for it themselves. So they want to make sure that their employees stay as safe as they can. So we did a study with them. We educated them about how quickly you can become just 10% dehydrated because that company's all over the southeast where it's humid and very hot most of the
Mm,
year. And what they discovered was you can become 10% dehydrated in just 16 minutes if you're working in 93-degree temperature. And what they did is they trained our project managers. I'm trying to remember how many they had, but it was a couple, 300 project managers. And all they did was teach their employees about how quickly you can become dehydrated and about this synaptic gap. And then they told them not drink 8 glasses of water a day. All they taught them was always have water within arm's reach. Always have water within arm's reach and drink when you want to. Do not wait until you're thirsty. Yes, sir. Don't wait until you're thirsty. Here's what happened. That was a year-long study, Tom. They had an 84% reduction in on-the-job injuries.
wow.
It's just a matter of having the water within arm's reach, and they
And,
stayed fully hydrated.
right, right. So anytime they wanted to grab it, they would grab it. They wouldn't, yeah. So they,
Yeah.
okay.
If they were on a
Love it.
roof or in an attic or whatever, they'd have a camel pack or a bottle of water on their tool belt or
Hmm.
a metal container with water because of the concern about the plastics, etc.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
hydration is so important.
Right. So we talked about statins. They're to keep our cholesterol low.
Right.
If I remember correctly, I've done some research, but back in the day that we talk about, my day versus yours, 50, 60, 50, 60 years ago, maybe even 40, you know, um, a 250 cholesterol or more was not bad. And
Yeah,
now they're saying, if you're over 200, you're at risk.
yeah.
And,
Well,
you
you and
know,
I both know why they're saying that.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, we do, and the most important thing to remember is cholesterol is part of your brain is part cholesterol.
Yes,
What's the percentage?
it's like 60 some, 60 some
Okay,
percent.
so we definitely don't want to reduce it, limit it, or keep cholesterol from flowing naturally,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Absolutely correct.
Now, I personally, and maybe you can give me some diet tips, but I personally use either avocado, coconut, or olive oil for all of my meals and butter
Yeah, yeah. Real
100% of the
butter.
time.
Real
Yep,
butter. Yep.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
Any other dietary advice that they should, for our brain health, avoiding Alzheimer's, avoiding dementia, are there any foods that are maybe on your top five list of no-nos?
No nos or doo doos. I
No,
like doo
well,
doos.
both. Let's do
Yeah.
do-dos.
Any processed food is an absolute no no. Any
Right.
processed food. Uh, the doo doos, blueberries, phenomenal for the brain. Walnuts, phenomenal
Mm,
for the brain. Uh, oily fish, phenomenal for the brain.
like
Uh,
sardines.
I love sardines. My wife's sitting over here, and she's probably making a face right now. I can't see it.
Right.
She doesn't like sardines. I love sardines. I
Yeah, my
love
dad
sardines.
loves them too, and they're really good for you,
Oh,
you
they're
know.
phenomenal health wise and brain health wise. Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
those are the top three. And then leafy greens. Leafy greens. I got to admit, I cannot stand Brussels sprouts, but doggone it, they're good for you.
Right. Right. Wow.
And
That's
I'd rather live
fantastic.
longer. I'd
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
live longer.
Yeah, my new snack food is jalapenos. So I'll grab a jalapeno and bite off a couple bites throughout the day. I've done a lot of research. So in my diet, I put pink Himalayan salt, black pepper, cayenne pepper, ginger, turmeric, and oregano in every meal that I prepare that I heat
Wow.
because they're all individually beneficial, right? But
Yeah, you're good.
collectively, I feel phenomenal. So
Yeah,
thank you for those tips on that, Doug. And then to get in touch with you, well, side note here, hey everybody, please make sure you like and subscribe. In the description, I'm going to put the book link for your last book. And then let me know as soon as those websites are up, or I can put the links in.
yeah,
And we got a lot of great stuff. For those of you who don't know, Doug and I are friends. We met back in 2014 down in Florida. Doug is still in Florida enjoying warm weather. I'm in Maryland, not enjoying the cold. So I am talking about relocating. I love the Carolinas as well. Doug, any parting, if I were to start, if I really was focusing on my brain, the new neural pathways and the diet and hydration, anything else that goes along with that?
I would just say study, study yourself, turn inward, and before you put things into your body, think about whether or not what you're putting in there is going to be good for your brain.
Sure.
Starting with it all starts with the brain.
Like reading a
Everything.
label or two, that would be good.
That would be phenomenal.
Like, for
Yeah.
example, I
Well,
stopped
that would
drinking
be
Coke.
frightening. It might cause you to have a heart attack if you read all the labels
Yeah,
after you educate yourself. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely try not to do that. Well, as always, an absolute pleasure. Sorry for the little technical difficulties getting off the ground, but we landed the plane. Um, and so, everyone, again, this is Doug Bench, the brain training guy. Whether you're 30, 60, or 100, you can rewire and create new neural pathways. And we have
Yeah.
some great stuff and programs coming up and books from
Yeah.
Doug. So
And if
stay
they
tuned.
have, Tom, if they have any questions, they can just email me. That's Doug at brainapples.com. Brain Apples is an acronym that Jack Canfield gave me. Apples. If you study how your brain works, your achievements, productivity, performance levels will elevate significantly.
Nice. Nice. I
Yeah,
love the sound of that. I remember when you told me that, and what a wonderful man he seems to be. I don't know Jack well, but every time I see him, he's got a beautiful energy about him.
yeah, he does.
But I'll put your email also in the description here. And thank you so much for joining me. And I definitely
Well,
look
thank
forward
you
to
for having us. We'll
cool
stay
deal.
in touch. You got it.
No doubt.